Hi, this is David Heine, Aspect Art. Today we're in the Tropen Museum for their new show on batik. Now, batik is a kind of material that we're all more or less familiar with. It's something that is ancient and modern, both at the same time. It's a technique using wax and dye to make a multitude of design on material. Now, this exhibition goes into the history of it, the influence on the world that wears batik, and the European connection. So join us now at the Tropen Museum for batik. We're here today in the Tropen Museum for the beginning of a new exhibition on batik. Could you tell us a little about the inception of the exhibition and what it's about?
Well, the point we started with was, of course, the collection. The Tropen Museum owns a great collection of Indonesian textiles, and part of this collection is, of course, the collection of batik textiles. A few years ago we bought a major collection. We already had a beautiful collection of batik, but then we bought an extra one, which made the collection complete, more or less complete. You're never complete, but this was a very good addition. And that was the moment we decided to make an exhibition on batik. So we took the collection as our starting point, and then I started to study and to go through all the 3,000 batik textiles. And then when you study them, then the subjects for your exhibition just come rolling out, and that's what happened.
Well, batik almost seems timeless. All of us have wore it at one point or another, or are certainly familiar with it. Could you give us a little history about batik and tell us its origins?
Well, batik is a resist dye technique, which is very old. You can find it in several places in the world, but only in Indonesia it came to this superb creations, this fineness of the work, and you see it in Africa and in Japan and all kinds of places, but only in Indonesia it became very important. It started in Indonesia already a long time ago. We don't know exactly where it came from, probably from China, and it was a kind of a rough technique first, and only in the beginning of the 17th century the chanting, the fine wax pen, was invented, and later on when the fine cotton was imported from Holland, then the beautiful textiles as we have them here now in the exhibition were made.
Now, the method or the technique of creating batik, maybe you could give us a little on that. You said canting?
Chanting.
Chanting. So tell us a little about that.
Well, the chanting is a little wax pan. It has a copper vessel and a bamboo handle. And the lady who does the batik, she takes a little of the warm fluid wax. She puts it into the chanting, and then she draws her figures, her motifs on the cloth. The cloth most of the time is cotton, and then you have the motifs in wax on the cotton. They apply the wax at both sides, so you have a perfect drawing on both sides. And then when the first drawing is ready, you put the cloth into a dye bath. So when you take, for instance, a red dye bath, then the places where the wax is will not be dyed, so they stay white. When you remove the wax, then you have white figures on a red background. This procedure you can rehearse often, and then you have a multicolored textile at the end. So in a way it's very simple, but it is very complicated also, because when you look at the textiles you hardly can imagine how incredible difficult this must be.
Now, speaking of that, there are lots of different styles in batik. Could you tell us a little about the varying styles that have developed out of this? It seems timeless, but in fact there must be a progression of styles or different forms that it's taken.
Yes, in the course of the 18th century, of course, Java was a trade route island. All the traders came along Java, and they settled sometimes. The Chinese settled there. The Arab traders traded their materials to India, and then they came to Indonesia. And in the colonial time, then Europeans came, the Dutch mostly. So they all settled in Java, and they married to Javanese women. And then these various groups of for instance, Indo-Chinese, the Indo-Arab, and the Indo-European people emerged. And Java became a kind of a multi-ethnic society, because clothing everywhere in every society is a medium to show your identity. Also, these different groups showed their identity by means of batik. So these groups all developed their own style. We have a Chinese style, we have the Indo-European style, and the style influenced by the Islam, and of course the styles from Java itself, which were influenced by the Hindu Buddhism.
Now, I notice as I look around in the exhibition that there was a strong influence on the Dutch artists at the turn of the century. Could you tell us something about that?
Yeah, there was, at the end of the 19th century, there was the arts and crafts movement of William Morris in England. And this was a kind of protest against mass production of things used in the houses. So they, I'm sorry, they started to look around, the artists, they started to look around for new techniques they could use. And because the Netherlands were so much involved with Indonesia or with the Dutch East Indies in those days, the Dutch artists looked to the east, to Java, and they saw the batik technique as a great inspiration to make their own beautiful works of art. So we have, in this exhibition, we have quite some famous artists, beautiful pieces of them hanging here.
Now, in the exhibition, you've arranged it in a kind of particular way. Could you talk a little about this beautiful arrangement of your exhibition?
Yeah, when the museum started the discussion with Joa, the architect, I had my portfolio with me with all the beautiful pictures and so on of the textiles. And I told him about these 4 styles we just were talking about. And then he saw one of the famous motifs from the Javanese courts in central Java. And he saw it, and it consists of 4 shapes, and it's the kawung motif. And when he saw it, he said, "This is it. I make the exhibition in the shape of this kawung motif," and I think it came out greatly.
Now, in your exhibition, you've put a lot of historical photographs of varying uses of batik. I notice in most of them there's a male and a female, both wearing batik. Was there a difference in the style between what males and females wore, or how they wore them?
Well, there were definitely sarongs only female wore, but initially I don't think so there was a difference. For instance, in central Java, men and women were the same, but on the north coast I think it's different. And also, I think men, like the Indo-European men, and sometimes even the Chinese, they were also the chelana, and these were the trousers made out of a batik. So they didn't wear it as a sarong or a kain panjang, but as trousers made out of a batik cloth.
Now, oftentimes, certain kinds of... we lived in India for a period of time, and a certain group, the Muslims, wore a certain kind of mundu, they called them there. And the Hindus wore another one. Yeah. They were secular, but at the same time had religious connotations. Was this at all true in Java?
I think so, yes. Definitely, of course, the Javanese batik, they all have motifs on it which refer to Hindu-Buddhist ideas, to the cosmos, to the harmony in life, harmony in everything. And also the Chinese, they have lots of motifs on their batiks, like the bat, which is like bringing the phoenix, the bird, which only shows up when you need luck, and all kinds of things. So there are a lot of religious connotations on the batiks, yes.
And in the exhibition I saw that in the European influence that they did something to do, it looked like fairy tales or something. What was that about? Yeah,
that's quite an interesting thing happening around 1860, when Indo-European batik entrepreneurs, they took the batik technique as a medium to express all kinds of ideas. They took fairy tales as their inspiration, or even epics from from India. They had the Lombok War. We have so many of those batiks, so I thought I make a separate part of the exhibition because this is so interesting. These women found out how to express their feelings about things, about Holland, about things happening politically and so on. And because I think this is so interesting, I ordered for this exhibition to continue this tradition of having batiks with all kinds of inscriptions. I ordered a batik last September in Cirebon, and they made there a batik with the title of the exhibition on it. So we have now all these batiks with all kinds of titles and things, and we also have one from 2001.
Now, batik has spread throughout the world. In fact, one of your sections in the exhibition indicates all the places it went. It even went as far as Africa. Now, is there a variation in style and color from country to country, or do they follow a general pattern?
No, there is no similarity almost at all. They are extremely different all. You immediately, when you know a little bit about, you immediately see when it is a batik from Africa, because they are so completely different, or from Japan, or no, you can see it immediately. Well, the exhibition is open for the public from April 11th until October 14th, and we open every morning at 10 o'clock. We close at 5 o'clock in the afternoon, also in the weekend, so it's every day the same. And I would like to tell also that we have a workshop on Saturdays and Sundays, so people can come here and have the chanting, take the chanting themselves and try it. And that's a wonderful idea, because then you see how difficult it is, and how wonderful it is what these batik ladies accomplished in their batiks.
Lady, thank you very much. It's a stunning exhibition, and I like the music a lot too. Thanks.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
Well, here we are in the Hermitage in Russia, an unusual exhibition of Dutch art. Could you give us a little of the background on it?
Unusual in a way, because there is an enormous interest here within the collection of the Hermitage in Dutch art, the Dutch masters, 17th century masters here. But of course, modern art is not that often to see here, and it's very courageous that the Hermitage Museum tries to combine, make a relation of contemporary art with the art of the old masters. And what we did here is bring together a group of artists from 1945 to 1985 in a way that there are important artists within this group.
Now, you've mentioned that you see a relationship between the 17th century Dutch masters, or a kind of continuity in it. Could you explain that a little bit?
Well, I think that in 17th century Dutch art there is an enormous interest in the way we see the things, the materialization, the techniques they used to give reality an image, and the way it is transformed by the way they use their brushes, and they give atmosphere. And even in abstract work, of course with the continuations by people like Mondrian or the expressionist who has been influenced by Van Gogh, that there is a continuity in this tradition by using expressionistic elements or very formal interests like Sarendam and the work of Jan Dibbets. These kinds of interest, especially aware within our tradition, within our Dutch tradition.
Now, you've spoken a little bit of the cooperation between the Stedelijk Museum and the Hermitage. Could you tell us, is this going to continue and will it expand, or
Yes.
what is the relationship?
We intend to make a large exhibition of Cobra artists, and this is more or less a kind of first introduction of the Dutch art. And so the Cobra exhibition will be really a group exhibition with a wider focus on Cobra.
And this exhibition now is going to be here in the Hermitage for how long?
Until mid-September. So every day a lot of visitors come here. It's an enormous public. And I think what I experienced by the reactions is that they have a lot of interest in seeing these works here.
Well, Martin, thank you very much for talking with us, and success with the exhibition. It looks like you've got already a good crowd.
Thank you.